appeared before her. She left her son to take care of the overflowing milk, although the child was not yet fully satisfied with drinking the milk of his mother's breast. Being very angry and biting his reddish lips with his teeth, Krishna, with false tears in his eyes, broke the container of yogurt with a piece of stone. Then he entered the room and began to eat the freshly churned butter in a solitary place. Hare Krishna. And what verse are we going through? 3. Kshamang vasa pritukatita te biprata sutranadang. Putra sneha snuta kuchayunga jata kapancha subru. Rajiv akarsha sramabuja chalat kathanu kundalecha. Svinang Vaktrang Khabarag Viggalana Amalati Nirmamanta. Okay, Kshaumam, saffron and yellow mixed. Vasaha, Mother Yashoda was wearing such a sari. Pritakatate, surrounding her large hips. Bibhakti, shaking. Sutranadham, bound with a belt. Putrasneya snuta, because of her intense love for her child, became wet with milk. Kucha yugam, the nipples of her breasts. Jatakampamcha, as they were very nicely moving and quivering. Subru, who had very beautiful eyebrows. Raju Akarsh, by pulling on the rope of the churning rod. Shrama, because of the labor. Bhuja, on whose hands. Chalat Kankanao, the two bangles were moving. Kundale, the two earrings. Cha, also. Svinam, her hair was black like a cloud. So perspiration was dropping like rain. Vaktram, throughout her face. Kabara Vigalat Malati, and malati flowers were dropping from her hair. Nirmamanta, thus Mother Yashoda was churning the butter. Translation. Dressed in a, we'll do this together. Dressed in a yellow, saffron yellow sari, with a belt tied about her full hips. Mother Yashoda pulled on the churning rope, laboring considerably, her bangles and earrings moving and vibrating, and her whole body shaking. Because of her intense love for her child, her breasts were met with milk. Her face, with its very beautiful eyebrows, was wet with perspiration, and malati flowers were falling from her hair. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta SWAMI Prabhupada. Okay, great. Any who desires to be conscious is in motherly affection or parental affection should contemplate the bodily features of Mother Yashoda. It is not that should desire to become like Yashoda, for this is Mayavad, either in parental affection or conjugal love, friendship or servitorship. In any way, we must follow in the footsteps of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, not try to become like them. There, this description is provided here. Advanced devotees must cherish this description, always thinking of Mother Yashoda's. Give me an F, E, E, E. Features, yes. How she was dressed, how she was working and perspiring, how beautifully the flowers were arranged in her. Okay, yeah. And so on. Should advantage of the full description provided here by of Mother Yashoda in maternal affection for. Thank you, Jai. Haribol, everyone. Namo Vishwapadaya Krishpasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vicharini Nishi Shanyavari Paschachari Shatarini. Hare Krishna. So it becomes very clear what we should be thinking of. Okay? There's a lot of things to think about. Unlimited objects, unlimited actions going on all around us all the time. And most of us have some stuff stored up inside from the past, perhaps desires from the future, and also current, circumstances going on right now. So there's a lot to think about. It seems like the mind is an unlimited, unfathomable vessel in which thoughts can be retained. But what is being encouraged by us is to, see what we can do to empty those thoughts and rather replace whatever's there with something very positive. The imagery here is pretty astounding. Colors are given. The shape of her body, her features, big hips to accommodate babies. And other elements, working hard, perspiring. All these are features that should be deeply implanted into our subconscious. I mean, when people talk about God or think about God, it's usually something quite abstract. It's something way out there, on a cloud. But here we're looking at things that are quite human-like. Some people are a little offensive about that, about Krishna's birth. They say, Krishna is born of Sattva Gun. Well, that's offensive. Sattva Gun is one of the modes of nature. It's a mundane mode, actually. But that's the best that some people can come with. Commentators, Speculators, people with armchair speculators. I speculate that blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, laboring hard. Some of the paraphernalia is there. She's using a rope, and in this way there's a stirring up of the, with the contents of the milk. It's turning into butter, eventually. If we ever fulfill the dream of going to Black Creek Pioneer Village, they usually show you how to make butter right on the spot. Because that's what the early pioneers did. Butter. You make butter on the spot. On the spot? Yeah. And that's how, they used to, what people used to do. The Europeans brought in cattle, cows and bulls, and this way they got one of their main, what Prabhupada calls the miracle food, which is milk, dairy. So that's one of the features. There's also mention of the vibrations, the shaking, hair moving, not necessarily here, but in some of the other verses, so some things that are in her hair are loosening, let's say falling down. And this way she's laboring very hard for her Lord. And it's all done out of affection. It's all done out of affection. This maternal affection is very deep in most people's lives, People celebrate Mother's Day in a big way, at least in North America. If you talk to some people from other countries, what are you North Americans doing? We have Mother's Day every day. But at least there's a designation for remembering the mother who's got so much, let's say, affection is the best word for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what makes it worthwhile, to think about Krishna and Mother Yashoda and their deep relationship. Now, whenever there are relationships, there's going to be some misunderstandings, miscommunications. Part of communication is some things we miss, and some things are very clear and understood. So Krishna was putting on an act. We know, he's a thespian god. You know what that means? Thespian. He's a theatrical personality. He puts on dramas. He puts on big productions. He is the director, And there's a few places in the Bhagavad Gita where it says, I am the directing. I'm the director. And big productions such as the Mahabharata and, ultimately also the Ramayana, it's big production, cast of thousands, maybe millions. And he pulls it off. So part of the act is that he gets angry. He's not giving me attention. I want full attention. So Krishna is being a little bit on the greedy side, you might say, but it's part of his Leela. Ultimately, he is Atmarama. He is self-satisfied. But he puts himself into a position where great souls, liberated souls, Nitya Muktas, if you can use that term, he engages them in a Leela, in a pastime with him. And this way they become immersed, and this way they become hooked, if I can use that term, hooked on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the goal of life, to really, get in with the Creator. So Krishna's the Creator, is Aham Sarvasha Prabhavo, Mata Sarvam Pravartati, Iti Matva Bhujantimam, Buddha Bhava Samanvita, which means that everything emanates from him. All that is matter and all that is spirit. And anyone who knows this about Krishna, uses their intelligence, Buddha, in his service. So it's a beautiful definition of what is God. You can find it there in chapter 10, text 8 from Bhagavad Gita. Perfect definition of what is God. Krishna is the creator. Krishna is also the director. He's also the destroyer. There's a manifestation of him as Shiva, Rudra Dev, who destroys. But it's Krishna who empowers Shiva to do these things. So everything's going on all because of him, and anything that's wondrous, anything that's compelling, it's because of him. The story of creation, which most people have interpretations on, whether it's our indigenous people or people from different religious backgrounds, they all got their idea about creation. Some of them are very generic, general, not very detailed. Some of them are more detailed. Like some of the, I think it's the Hopi natives, they talk about a massive turtle. Everything starts with a big turtle. What does that remind you of?
Kurma.
Yeah, Kurma Avatar, right? And the story goes on. But there's nothing quite as detailed as this. And what the Acharyas have allowed us to enter into is the beautiful pastimes of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the beautiful tales of the personality of Godhead, the narrative of God and his wonderful pastimes, which includes his intimate ones, conjugal on that level, and also parental affection, which you don't find in most traditions. For a lot of traditions, God is very powerful, God gets angry. Okay? And when he's angry, watch out. There's going to be volcanoes, there's going to be earthquakes, going to be strong winds, there's going to be like hailstorms, fire will come, it'll be very devastating. So don't cross him, you know. Okay, so Krishna can do all of that, and even as Ram, was the Ram avatar, he said, I'm going to, you know, once he found out that Sita was taken by this Ravana, he says, I'm going to flatten the earth. I'm going to, you know, whatever mountains are there, I will flatten, I will destroy everything, you know. And then Lakshman had to calm him down. Chill, chill, chill. This is also part of the Leela, part of the theater, you know, that God puts on. By the way, we've got our own theatrics going on, you know. Like you think you're Nikhil, somebody. You think that you're, you know, you have a certain name, you're a Punjabi, right? But that's not correct, right? Okay? We've all got our different, Alex, you think you're Alex, but you're not Alex, all right? Part, you think you're part. You're a part of something wonderful. Well, that's very true. But, you know, we got these strange notions. We've got our designations, that's the term Prabhupada always used, and it's something that needs correcting. You know? We've got to get our identity crisis over with, you know? And as Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, we're all part and parcel of the Supreme Person. What is the verse? I'm just trying to think. What is the shloka? Could somebody help me with that one? We're all parts of living entities. If you come up with it, just, you know, you can raise your hand and we'll share it. Okay? So, yeah, we're part of a drama, and we're part of our own mundane drama. We got our identities, you know, and with this is my father, this is my mother, this is the country I'm coming from. I am a plumber, I am a nurse, I am this and that. And, you know, it's all incorrect. Yes, you have the verse.
Is that like Aham Bij Pratapita?
Pardon me?
Aham Bij Pratapita, that one?
That is God, just the seed. Krishna is the seed-giving father of all. Shiva Buddha Sanatana. My Vangsha. Okay. Thank you very much. Manashastani Andriyani. Rakriti Stani Karishati. So, yeah, do you want to share with us the place where that is? Okay, so what we're saying there is that we're all parts and parcels of the Lord, and that also we are struggling here in this world with the six senses, including the mind. Okay? So this is a good verse. Living entities in the conditioned world. This is the conditioned world where we are. This is a drama. This is a stage. I mean, Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage. Everyone's into some kind of drama. You know, people in relationships are into drama. Everyone. There's always something going on. Something's going down. But you have to keep in mind we are fragmental parts. So part, not the whole. We're not the whole. We're part of. If you make up you know, I heard Jayashree wanted apple pie to be made, baked. Is that true? Someone told me. Okay, a pie. So there's a pie and there's a piece of a pie. The piece of the pie has the qualities of the pie in whole, but it is part of a pie. And one should be happy with part of the pie, similarly, instead of the whole pie, because you'll get sick. So similarly, we should be satisfied with being the part and parcel and not trying to be the whole. We are trying to be the whole. That's the problem. That's really essentially our problem. We're in a drama. We're drama queens. That's what we are. We've got it all mixed up. We're very confused in this area. Certainly we're struggling. When you're in the conditioned world, you're struggling. And you're struggling not with ease. You're struggling very hard with the six senses, which includes the mind. You know, one thing to think about is that when you labor hard, you know, physically, you're probably gonna have a nice sleep. But now we're so much caught up in our senses, and especially on the mental level, you know, people don't sleep very well. People are just not having a good life, you know? Despite all the accessories, despite everything that's there's just, people are struggling very hard. Yeah. So, you know, it's better to have, you know, a life of physical struggle than to have a life of mental struggle. So in the modern world, it's mental struggle, psychological. And that's why people are so frustrated, so angry. Yeah. I know from being raised on a farm, we'd work hard, like 8 hours a day, and then we were tired. You weren't in the mood to fight with anybody. Just wanted to have a nice, good meal, and maybe play baseball after, whatever. And then you're just tired, dead tired. You get up in the morning for more of the same routine. It was quite wonderful. Life was simple. But now it's all like mind games that people have with each other. And when you're surrounded by, well, I would call this natural, with green things and animals all around you, that's the way it's supposed to be. I pity those people who stay in a box with a window, maybe if you're lucky on one side. I pity such people who live on the 35th floor. You know, they're not touching the ground. Even the raccoons can't climb up that high. You do find them out there. They do find them. They found raccoons, you know, in downtown, you know, one climbing way up, you know. They found raccoons in all kinds of interesting places in the ceiling at the Pearson Airport. Someone had opened up the ceiling because there was something happening, some drip, drip, drip. We actually had one raccoon here that, you know, we just finished doing the ceiling. Remember, what's his name? What's his name? Vallabhari, the Russian one. Russian. And he was just standing there, drip, drip, because some kind of oil thing came down on him. And so they, you know, just after you kind of like smoothing everything out, priming it, and then they had to open up the ceiling to see what was there. And there was a raccoon that had been there for several months, and just his skeleton was left. And there's this like oil, whatever little was left of his bodily, you know, content was just kind of dripping down. I took pictures of it and I put it on Instagram and said, "What do you think this is?" And I got it, and it's just, that's definitely a dinosaur. So anyways, it's nice to know that, you know, we have raccoons that come and visit us once in a while. And that you can be in touch with nature. That's the natural life. Okay, so what's interesting about what God does in his drama, we know that Krishna is a city slicker later on. He's got his own program together. He's got Dwarka, yeah? And before that was Mathura. He spent some time in Mathura. Big cities, you know, and the young people, he was kind of enticed to go to the bigger places. A lot of kids grow up in small towns and then they find jobs in big cities. Well, Krishna's no exception. Yeah. Anyways, there's the urban Krishna and then there's the rural Krishna. You can take your pick which one is closer to your heart. I can bet you anything. Most of you are saying that I like the rural God as opposed to the urbanite personality of Godhead, right? But both of them are meritorious. Both of them are kind of fun. You know, to say that God is whole and God is complete, Purnam, complete, you have to appreciate that Krishna gets into all areas of interest. You know, there's no limitation for him either. But he has chosen to come to earth. Think about that. He's got a lot of options. He's got, there's the moon, you know. We don't hear too much about Krishna and the moon, but we do hear a lot about Krishna on this earth. We go to Vrindavan, you know, and there you've got this happened here and that happened there, you know. Krishna killed this asura here, and then I remember when I went to India first, 1978, there was one American devotee who was like our guide. He said, "See this spot here? It was like a little oil, you know, it's an oily part on a tree, near Sevakunj." And said, "This is where Krishna was hiding from Mother Yashoda. He just had butter on his hands. And he was hiding from her, and there's the oil spot, like left over from when he, 5,000 years ago." At least these are stories that people like to tell, whether it's true or not. I remember him saying, "I'm not sure if that's correct, but that's what I was told. I'm not sure." The Kadamba tree was there where he jumped off in order to get rid of Kaliya serpent. That's still around, you know. But some of the other items, you have to wonder sometimes, you know. But definitely Krishna is there. And even if it's left to your imagination, you want to believe, you might, even if you call it myth, just get enwrapped in it, because there isn't anything better. And I've had a lot of time to think about mythology, and there's truth in mythological stories. In the essence of mythology, there's truth. There's truth in it all. So there's a lot there for us to think about. There's a lot there for us to absorb. Whether it's going to be Krishna in Vrindavan, whether it's going to be Krishna in Mathura, whether it's going to be Krishna in Dwarka, or whether it's going to be Krishna in... I wasn't thinking about that one. Maybe Kurukshetra, that's the one I was thinking about, yeah. And he gets around, he and Balaram got around. They got around and with their exploits, so on like that. There's something there for everybody. There's something there for everyone in the pastimes of the Lord. So we may not forget. I remember telling the Toronto Star people about the story of Rathiana. So what's it all about? You know, they're taking notes, because that's what we had in those people had in those days. So this is God and his brother and their sister going to the ocean side and to take in the favorable ocean breezes. And they wrote that in the paper, you know, and it was so, and they said, such a gentle story. They actually complimented it, that there wasn't anything threatening about it. It was just there was charm there, you know, and they really appreciated it. And I said, that's what we're doing. We are celebrating. I also remember telling them another aspect of the pastimes of Rath Yatra, which they didn't write in the newspaper. I told them, you know, there are some people that have been, you know, lost their lives, being pinned under the wheels. Yes, we read about that. But they put that in the paper. Yeah. So Krishna's a charmer. This is it right now where we are at. The 10th canto being the largest chunk or part of the Bhagavatam delivery is meant for our edification. It's meant for our satisfaction. It's meant for us to be very clearly absorbed in, especially his childhood pastimes are so nice. They're pretty extensive. They're wonderful. And, you know, he's a child prodigy. He's a miracle child. You know, he appeared under incredible circumstances. Everybody knows Vrinda. Vrinda, our Vrinda, who comes here occasionally. Yeah, she just became a grandmother. A little grandson came from her daughter, Madhavi, who was in our play when she played Sati. And she got a baby the other day. She's 42 years old. She got a baby. And the doctors were saying she'll never have a child, never have a baby. But it happened. They called it a miracle child, miracle baby. She had one. So, I mean, for Krishna to be God, for Krishna as God, he's coming here. into this world and presents himself like an ordinary child. It's pretty magical. It's pretty amazing. Really, it is. And we try to figure it out. If you have some other reference point, there's Immaculate Conception. God comes in. Anyways, you know how it works, you know. The so-called Father of God, Vasudev, he's meditating on the Supreme Lord, Vishnu. And while he's meditating, he's transmitting his thoughts through the ether that come to Devaki's mind, you know, and from there she gets impregnated. That's how it's done. It's not done through like regular intercourse. So that's what we mean by conception, conceiving a child. Immaculate. It's pure, it's clean. So that's pretty incredible. And how he comes out of the womb with some, you know, with a full head of hair and a mukut on and all that. That's hard to understand, but you know, it's not by seminal discharge that it happens. That's how Prabhupada put it. So everything's pretty magical. Everything's pretty amazing. We're talking about the creation. Even the creation is pretty incredible. You know, it starts off with the causal ocean. First of all, God, you know, a big blue man is lying there, relaxing, and he's in a yoga nidra state. And then out from his navel comes, you know how you told you were a kid, if you swallow a watermelon seed, it's going to start to grow out. It'll grow out of your ear or something like that, right? And you had a tendency to believe that. Oh my God, no! You know, so out of the Lord's navel comes this, you know, this plant, you know, and on top of the plant was not necessarily, well, a lotus, yes, but out of the lotus comes what seems to be like a human, you know. It was very, very intelligent. 4 heads, better than one. Brahma, and you know, he's also wondering, contemplating, what am I doing here? You know, like kind of like, what to do? You know, and he's looking this way and that way and this way and all over the place. And then the sound vibration comes, ta pa, 2 syllables, ta pa. So it was not what because he couldn't see, there wasn't much to see. Water below and just like space, you know, like if you ever go to one of those sinkholes, which they have in America. So sinkholes are dried up riverbeds. And I went there with the youth bus tour, one of those sinkholes, and it's amazing. It's all dark. And so it's a little bit like that for Brahma, and he's wondering what is the purpose of life? And then Tapa came, so we performed austerities. And as we know from the Brahma Samhita, you know, he got enlightened. The flute of the Lord was, you know, emitting beautiful sounds. I think it was the 5th note, you know, of the whole of the flute. And then as a result, he became enlightened. Tene Brahma Rida Ya Adi Kavaye Muyantiyat Surya. So he became enlightened. And so that's a bit of part of the story of the creation, you know. And then Brahma starts to create the whole world. He's like a secondary creator. So when I remember Churu saying this a long time ago when we first started the Festival of India. Did you know that Festival of India started right here in TO? Yeah, Festival of India started here. And Churu and his wife were staying here. Yeah, better write that down. Good history. I remember giving a class. When God does something, it's going to be wondrous. It's going to be magical. It'll be miraculous. It's not just going to be really simple, like you turn on a light switch and light comes. It wasn't like that. It's going to be detailed. It's going to be powerful. It's going to be stunning. It's going to be very, very, you know, colorful and innovative. Let's put it that way. Whenever Krishna does something, it's like that. And at the same time, it comes across like human dynamics. So that's where people get a little bit bewildered. Oh, it's just like a kid. He's like a kid. And he's got a girlfriend, Radharani, just like any other guy. Yeah. So, we have to start to hear what the acharyas say, commentators on the Krishna Lila, to be able to get the story right and to understand Krishna's actual position. He's just not an ordinary man. Avajananti mam mudha. You know that one. Avajananti mam mudha. Everybody knows what a mudha is, right? Me. Foolish person. Foolish persons deride me when I descend in this what seems to be a human form. So we got to get the story right. Krishna is fully divine. Janma karma chame divyam. His birth, his activities, totally divine. Divine. Divine master. Okay, so we're at a point where we should stop and get some reflections out from you, Prabhus, you kind souls. And yes.
I have a question, March.
Yes.
So at the starting of the lecture, I think it was in the purport, or maybe you said it, that we shouldn't aspire to be like Mother Yashoda.
Oh,
That
yeah.
we should follow in the footsteps of Mother Yashoda or Vrajvasis and advanced devotees like this. What I want to understand what the difference looks like between
Yeah.
following and trying to be like them.
Yeah, no, that's a good thought. It's a very good question. It's very valid. Well, here's how I would answer it, is that at the base of our love for Krishna, it's all got to be, I'm the servant. That's where we start. That's our starting point. And for many of us, that's where we should probably stay. Should just probably stay there. And what will develop later on is, your natural Swarup Siddhi. But the purpose is, the whole idea is to serve the Lord. And, in time, some particular rasa may be invoked. That's not anything we should push. It's not we can't be superficial about it. It's not an artificial imposition. But so the difference would be, I just say, follow your practices of Vaidhi Bhakti and just be content with that. And when we say follow in the footsteps of these great souls, it means be committed. It means do it with love. I'd personally be very concerned if somebody started to come here and dress like Nanda Maharaj every day, and or somebody like Mother Yashoda, or somebody think they're a peacock, comes to the Bhagavatam class like this. Not like premature transcendence. So I think just for Mahajana Yinakata Sampanta, follow the footsteps of the great souls and let happen what is to happen. Is that okay? Just keep it at that, Keep it at the level of being obedient and following, just being very focused on your sadhana. And then there might be a breakout. There might be let's see, the ice may break on you, if that's a nice Canadian, let's say, comparison. There might be a breakthrough, and it has to come very natural, spontaneous. There was a time when devotees were starting to talk a bit about their Swarup Siddhi. And it was a little bit scary. It was just out of the immaturity. And I remember everybody knows Professor Joseph T. O'Connell.
Yes.
You've all have heard of him, right? He lived in Toronto. He supported us during very difficult times. And, he was a theologian. He was a professor of the Bhakti movement, Chaitanya Vaishnavism, as well as Sikhism. He could speak fluent Bengali. He was a brain, super brain. O'Connell. like an Irish name, an Irish guy learning Sanskrit and all this. So I remember, so what's been going on? We met somewhere at the St. Michael's division of the University of Toronto. And says, so what's been going on these days, BHAKTMARGA? They said, well, things are doing okay. There is a little phenomena going on right now of what they call Gopi Baba, where devotees were discussing a little bit about their, what is their Swarup city. And this is after Prabhupada left us, so you couldn't be there to monitor it. But he found it very interesting that devotees were talking about those kind of things. Because he knows the tradition. Maybe later on in your very maturing years, something like that can develop. But like again, I'd be very worried if somebody age 25, they start to come dressed like a peacock or like a blade of grass, The inhabitants of Vrindavan are, stepping on me all the time. So, I'm getting the mercy all the time, Such people have sort of mental, instability in their lives. So let's be normal. It's really a good question, though. Thank you. I hope we can see the difference. The level of commitment has to be strong, like the inhabitants. But one shouldn't artificially push, Okay, yes.
First of all, I really like how you answered your question. It was kind of humorous and
Yeah.
fun at the same time. My question is regarding the Festival of India. You mentioned it started here. Do you want to share some insights? Who had the idea? How it started?
Well, some of you might remember we had our anniversary here, the 50 years since the deities were installed. And one of those people came from Philadelphia, David Deva.
Yes.
David Deva is a boy from Windsor. He joined here and eventually made his way to the States. And, he was part of that program. They want to start a Festival of India. 3 chariots that would be mobile, would go to all the cities. There would be some entertainment, there would be some, dolls, like, what do you call those dolls that they call? Dioramas. So we started putting that all together. On the first trip, I think it was New York, 2 of the chariots weren't working. They weren't, But the festival carried on. It was originated from here, but it didn't get based here. People got their own chariots together. It was a beautiful, novel idea, to have a traveling road show. But it started right here in 1978, I believe it was. Yep, and the people involved were Chiru, remember the guy who was rapping, and his wife, Bobby. And there was a devotee by the name of Ganesh, he was from Australia. And then David Deva was anchored here himself. So he had his office there in the bell tower, where all the costumes are right now. So he had a secretary. So things were moving along. But we had, the chariots were so heavy, made of wood, like kind of authentic, and they were really chunky, and where do you store them? And it just, it got kind of difficult. But they were doing something very sincere, honest, and a result of it was that, Madhua has now got the Festival of India. It's actually now, he's got his trucks there in North Carolina, but it all started here. And the first Murdungas in ISKCON were made here.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ishan he was originally from North Dakota, but he lived some time here in Toronto. And he took it up. Prabhupada asked him to make some Murdungas. So we saw some interesting skins coming through the building at 187 Gerard Street, and then going up on the roof, you know, hides being dried by the sun. So they were trying to come up with something. He didn't continue with the project, but like, you know, maybe there were other places where they started mridanga making, but outside of India, they were trying to make some mridangas here. Like, then LA took it up with the fiberglass mridangas, which never really, you know. That's a little bit of the history. Started from here. Okay, so Toronto's famous for a few things, you know. It's the raccoon capital of the world. And then when it comes to ISKCON, well, we started off, well, a few things started off here. We're known to have incredible kirtans on Gerard Street. We were kind of like world famous kirtans, because there were rock musicians who were leading the program. And, you know, upstairs, Prabhupada said once that, to Professor O'Connell, yes, women can be gurus. So that's like a milestone. When Nutama came here a few years ago, maybe 8 years ago or so, I told him this is where Prabhupada said to Professor O'Connell, that who asked the question, can women be gurus? And Prabhupada said, yes, they can. Janavi, he gave an example of, you know, Nitin and his wife. And and when I told that to Anutama, right, well, that was said here, in this room. Yes, right here, right where you're sitting. So it's kind of a famous room, that sitting room, because that has been such a controversial topic. Shouldn't be, you know. I mean, Prabhupada said it, so. Yeah, and it's one of the few buildings that Prabhupada walked in that we still have. So we're proud of it. He walked through this area, said, now make sure, you know, if we get this, make sure we keep it very clean, otherwise rats will come. Oh, okay. Okay, we'll have to finish it off right now. Okay, why don't you go put the reviews, Jeff?